from Norwalk, so from between Long Beach and LA, like
he's
LA
in
County.
our neck of the woods.
Wait a minute. Okay, so that's making a lot of sense because one of your episodes I listened to, I think you talked to a woman and it was about a house in San Pedro. Did I do that right?
San Pedro.
And then
San Pedro. You can say San Pedro.
I can say San Pedro.
Or Harvard.
Okay, I guess like it was a house that
South Bay.
that she had moved into, and that's what really caught our attention about your podcast, and it's many of them. And I know that you do 2 in Spanish, and then the other 4 are in English. Now I've had the chance of hearing True Scary Story and Horror Story. I think. Am I getting these right? Just I want to make sure I get it right because that's what interested us. It intrigued us the most. We're like, wow, this guy has a lot of stuff. You have a ton of content out there.
Yeah, and the way that I ran into your podcast, I was listening to another scary type of podcast platform like the way yours is, and I had heard them say like, if you like these scary stories, listen to horror stories. And so I was like, wait a minute, okay. So I decided to listen to you. It's been about close to a year now that I've been listening to you. So
wow. Thanks.
So yeah, I mean, I genuinely enjoy your scary stories. The narration that you do, it does take a lot of good wording. Not only that, I mean, when it comes down to narration and voiceover, you gotta have the voice, and you do have the voice.
For sure.
Honestly.
Yeah, we like the setup,
thanks.
man. And as we post to the video, you'll see you have a nice little rig right there too with your pop filter and nice little podcast mic right there. Well, it's a good little
Thanks.
setup.
So yeah, and this thing sucks to travel with. I actually ended up buying it here. I have like, I don't know, one wherever I go, like I end up either finding something or something because this has that like heavy bass. But yeah, like it's
okay.
Yeah, and I was talking to a sound engineer back in through one of the networks, and they were like, I was like, should I travel with this one? Because I have a smaller one, and he said, yeah, I would, just because it'll keep it consistent and easier to edit. I'm like, I mean, I don't really know much about that, but I trusted him on it, and I just travel with this big old thing.
I'm glad you brought up the editing part because, like he was mentioning, Rojo mentioned that the recordings and the editing that you've done. I do like a lot of what you've done. The well-timed narration. Is there a team, or is that just all you, or do you have assistance with that? Is that everything that you take, from all the audio that you get? Because you have a ton of brands, and I'd imagine that's a lot of time. So, is there help, or is that all Edwin?
No, there's help. I mean, there's help now. I think when I first started, one of the shows is all me, which is Scary Story Podcast. That one's all from the start, from writing, everything, because it's creative. They're stories. They're just short stories. So how that one started, it was supposed to be, it's funny because it was supposed to be kind of like, those creepypasta podcasts where they're like, they steal stuff from Reddit and they just read it.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be kind of like that. Like I wanted people to send me stories and I would just read them. That's what I wanted. But I ended up writing and just kind of like, oh, this was sent in by whatever. Somebody would think that they were sent in. And I wrote there were like 10 or 12 of these stories. Actually, no, I started off with like less, like 5 or something like that. And they were short, 3-5 minutes. I released them and I was hoping people would send in stories, but nobody sent in anything. So I was like, oh man. And I kind of forgot about it. Then later on, I'm looking at the reviews just to like check in on what's going on because it's being downloaded. I can see it on the host. I'm like, why? Who's downloading this? And then I see the reviews and people are just like, more, like we need more of these. We need more.
That's
so I'm
awesome.
like, oh, this might be something. So I wrote more and more and more. And then it turned out like I just ended up, extending these stories. Some of these have three stories per episode. Some of them are long 20-minute stories.
Right.
But they're all super short. Yeah. And from there, I'm just like, I can't even, there's no way I'm going to like change the voice of this too much. So like, it's just going to be me writing it. Now I get submissions, but like I don't read them. I can't read them because of copyright stuff. And you worry about that kind of thing.
That makes sense.
I want to ask you, what is it that drove you to do scary stories? Like, was there something that occurred during your lifetime while I was growing up? Or is it just something that, I love scary stories. I love ghosts. I love the paranormal activity.
Yeah, I heard somewhere that when you're like, I don't know, like when you're an adult, you start kind of going back to what you liked as a kid, and like you barely notice it. Like, for example, if you like cars, you might have liked cars as a kid, and then your toys just get bigger, but like it's still the same idea. I think for me it was like that. Like I think there's definitely a correlation between my love for horror stories and scary stories as a kid to now, to what I do. But it wasn't like a thing that I wanted to do where I was just like, "Oh, I'm going to write stories or anything." It was just an interest that I had.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, it just kind of happened. And I got pushed into it because I was trying so many things online. Like, this is just one of the things that happened to work. But I also had like websites. I used to run blogs. Before even blogging was like on a website. I used to, I don't know if you guys remember Facebook Notes, but Facebook used to have this notes thing. Yeah, I used
Really?
to write
He's
on
more
that.
of a Facebook guy. I don't
What do you
remember
mean?
that.
I stopped using Facebook, but I know what he's talking about. This guy.
Yeah, and then
This guy just tries to act
even
like he doesn't know.
I really don't know about too much Facebook stuff, but I think that's cool because you mentioned the blog stuff, and like a lot of that stuff does start that way. Because I mean, did you have a blog spot back in the day? I don't know if like
yeah, a blog spot, yeah, Zynga, WordPress. It goes even beyond, like even the Yahoo, what's it called, GeoCities. Like it goes way back. Probably like before like even people like were born. Like some people, like I guess that it was intense.
I have checked out, like I was telling you, True Scary Story. So Messages and The Thing in the House, which Messages is your recent post, which I've had the chance to listen to this week as we record this interview. But prior to that,
I was actually listening to that on the way over here.
On the way over here? That's a trip. That one was a trip. What was the girl's name?
Shayla? Or something like that?
Shaylee.
Something like
Shaylee, there you
Yeah,
go.
we got it. So I was listening to that, and a lot of that stuff, like I know there's a lot of editing that goes into it. What do you think like the time it takes to put something like that together? I'm just thinking that just one episode. I could imagine like all the other ones because you have a ton of brands, but what for the time just for something like that? Let's just say that episode.
I mean, let me see. For True Scary Story, it can take anywhere from like a couple of hours, like 2.5 hours to edit. That's edit, not even including the interview part. To beyond like 5-6 hours, just depending on how in depth like we want to take it. Also, how long the story is. But then before that, there's also scheduling, right? Like there's the person reaches out, they fill out a form, they fill out that form, then it gets filtered to see if it's like a real story or if it's like if they can answer questions about it, if it's long enough. And then once it gets filtered, then they get, then they reply to the email with more details, whatever. The materials release form, the scheduling, the everything, and the call itself is around 45 minutes, sometimes longer.
Right.
We record sometimes for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we end up with 20 minutes, 30 minutes of audio that we end up releasing. Yeah. And all the editing, you know what? It got a lot faster because I got help for that show specifically at one point, but it was taking so long for me to like revise it and re-listen to it and then ask for the changes and then, go back and forth. So I just kept, editing myself. So now all the edits I do on my own. So, but yeah, that one takes, if on a good day, it will take me 2.5 hours. Then there's a post stuff, right? Uploading, creating the images that go per episode, writing the description, the everything, the titles, uploading to different platforms because they're also uploaded to our premium subscription platform and Apple Podcasts, the subscription platform there.
Scary.fm Plus?
Scary Plus.
Scary Plus. Yeah, because I did. We were looking at the website, and I do see that you have the submission on there towards, as you scroll down underneath all the podcasts that you offer at scary.fm. Do I have the right address?
Yeah, right? Scary.fm. And some people mess it up. So like I ended up using the domain scaryfm.com because it still redirects you to scary.fm.
I saw that.
I don't know. It was confusing.
Even on like the Google search, because as we're prepping to talk with you, as we do with most of the guests that we do, I did see that there was like scaryfm.com, scary.fm. I'm like, I'm just gonna go with everything that I see on like the branding on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts because it just seems like that's where that needs to go. But there's always a building point and it gets to scary.fm. But if you're out there, everyone, check out scary.fm. That's where all of Edwin's podcasts are.
And don't forget
hosted.
his YouTube channel.
Right.
You also have a YouTube channel with a bunch of scary stuff.
Yeah, there's the Scary Story podcast. We're actually doing a big change now, and I say we because I mean it is a team. Like with your previous question, we do have like it's somebody who does video, somebody who does specifically audio for one show, which is Scary Mystery Surprise, somebody who did like all these things, right? But sometimes you try to sound like but really it's just me. But no, this time it's like there's people. But we're actually
people, man.
combining. we're combining. we're combining everything into one like mega channel. Just after like some strategy with like how other people are doing it and how I guess the path we want to take it.
Yeah.
So it's not like working on individual channels over and over, but like because that was a mistake actually for not a mistake. It was just it added a different set of challenges for Scary FM, the podcast, when they're all individual instead of one thing called Scary FM. And that's with advertisers. So advertisers, when they want to see, they say, oh, we want, 100,000 impressions or whatever.
Right.
For me, it's like, oh, but can we distribute them between these shows? If it would have been all just one thing, it would have all, been centered there, and advertisers would have understood it like that. So it takes a little bit more of explaining to advertisers to get it. But we end up selling as a brand. So like we'll distribute it through all these other shows. Right. And then kind of we do the sum of it and submit it that way.
So I wanted to add, well, before I get to my question, I did notice, because I wanted to look back at some of your older stuff. And he does have one about the Turnbull Canyon in Whittier.
Oh wow!
I remember.
Yeah, that's like good. I mean, we're from.
Yeah, we're from out here.
We're from out here. Like he grew up in Beaumont Park. I grew up in La Puente. So where's SGV
Oh,
guys?
wow.
So when you say Turnbull, yeah, that's like notorious.
I remember real quick. I remember driving one time with friends up there, and yeah, it was pretty creepy. We didn't get to see. All we saw was these trees, and they had like these like weird dolls hanging. We did have a car that looked like it was following us. We didn't know what was going on, and we just kept going and kept following us, until finally we got, somehow it just decided to surpass us. So we don't know if it was following us or it was just like, dude, you guys are going too slow type of thing. But it was damn near too close to our car. It was creepy, but we never got to see anything. But I definitely got to listen to that story. And then you also have about La Rumorosa, which is I'm very familiar with because I go out to Mexicali, with my wife and her family, and we go up to La Rumorosa every so often. So, it's really cool to see some of these stories. And now I got to really dive in more into some of the older stuff that you have. But to go to my question, where do you compile all these scary stories? Or like, where do they come from? And are people just sending them all the time? And these true scary stories, where are you finding these people?
So originally for True Scary Story, the stories come from listeners of the show. Like, that's just how it ended up being. That was the original strategy. However, when you're first starting out, it's really hard, right, to get stories. It's just super tough. So I was scrambling. Like anybody who would tell me anything, I would record. Actually, the first story in True Scary Story is about Turnbull Canyon, and it's two of my friends that are telling me the story of something that happened to them.
Okay.
And also the very first story in Horror Story, which is it used to be called Dark Memory back in the day. It's also one of the first. I think it's Turnbull Canyon, also a Turnbull Canyon story. But yeah, with True Scary Story, people are just submitting those things because they find out about it through the podcast. And I kind of want to keep it. It's all strategy too. Like,
yeah.
I kind of want to keep it that way where people that actually listened tell a story, because otherwise it's like it doesn't match the feel of it. Like I notice when I publish more European people telling a story, I get more of those. When it's a lot of Mexican stories, like there's more people that are Mexican, telling me a story. All of a sudden there's like waves of white people telling me a story, and then there's more coming, like because it's what they hear, so it's like what they do.
Right.
For the other shows it's different. Like the other shows, it's obviously Scary Story podcast. It's more like there's some like trending topics that I kind of try to come up with, come up with stories about like when they're trending, or if it's something with Valentine's Day, for example. Like I had a story that never made it public, but it was called Love You to Death, right? And it's like it's supposed to be like this tragic love story or something. And for Horror Story, I really just wanted to get stories that we've heard, we're familiar with, but also stories like, how you say that you heard La Rumorosa or Horror Story like Turnbull Canyon, and they're familiar to you. When I was growing up, like there were some stories that I had no idea of so-and-so place in Connecticut or North Carolina. I'm like, I can't picture that. And there was not a lot of content where like for me to like say, oh, this is from Norwalk, oh, this is from Long Beach. Oh, like, and now I feel like I want to do that so that I can get people who are familiar with these things, into it, like with apartments, for example. Like you hear stories of House by the Lake. I'm like, why doesn't anybody talk about the apartments of what it was like growing up on so-and-so street? With
the lake houses are creepy stories, of course, and they do come out more often than you do hear something in some apartments. We did an interview about a guy. He chases
he hunts ghosts.
he hunts like paranormal
Yeah.
and ghosts and haunting and stuff. And I asked him, in your own personal experience, do you ever like see things or like because now that you cover a lot of these horror stories and you hear all these other stories from other people, like in your own personal life, like yesterday or sometime last week, do you ever encounter things on your own where it kind of gives you a chill and where you're like, oh, what the hell was that? Like that was a little weird. And maybe are you like freaking yourself out because you do that? I don't know. Like I would be, because some things just don't sit right with me like that. But that's just me because I'm weird. But I have to ask. So you got to have some story.
Yeah.
Weird.
Actually, a few things have happened, but one directly connected to the podcast that really creeped me out was with there's a story called Three Faceless Demons. Somebody told me that story, and all this time, by the way, my perspective is more like my stance on this is I don't want to say I believe in ghosts. I'm not like I'm like a healthy level of skepticism, right? I'm just like
Really? I like the healthy level.
Yeah, like this might be a gas leak, or you might just not be sleeping, so you're imagining. But then again, it might also be some other thing. Also, when somebody tells me like something with proof, and I'm just like, oh wow, like I'm open to it. I'm like, wow, so this actually happened. I believe it because it's more enjoyable when you believe it. But there was this one story, like I said, Three Faceless Demons. And that one, when we were recording, is this woman who's telling me about demons that visit her at night. And it's like this bizarre story that if you hear it, you're like, this is crazy. Like, this is not real. And that was kind of my idea at first. But when we recorded for a while. It started when she first said the word demon. And we started getting like weird connection trouble, like disconnected. And then
that's creepy.
We hopped back in, we got into the story, and then every time she would say it, we experimented with it like as we were recording. When she said it, a lamp that I had behind me would flicker. It was at night, and it was her daytime, my nighttime.
Creepy.
And it was flickering, and I was like, "Did you see that?" She was like, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "Yeah."
This is during the recording session?
During the recording, yeah. And then she's like, "Well, it happened when I said the word demon," and then it flashed again, and I'm like, "Okay, this is weird." And my heart's already like kind of beating. And I'm like, "Can you say it just in case?" Like, there's no way a third time it's gonna do it. She said it, and it blinked. It just did it again. It was like a weird flicker. Yeah, it was really weird. And then fast forward like a couple years, maybe like a year and a half, my sister's in my studio and she's asking me like, hey, does anything weird ever happen in here? So I told her, and I was like, oh, like there was a story that I heard called the Three Faceless Demons, and whenever she would say the word demon, and as soon as it said that, I have this neon Spotify lamp like on my sound booth, like on the side, and it started flickering. That thing never flickers because it's not neon. It's like a LED, like one of those wannabe neons.
Yeah.
And it started flickering. And I'm like, I've never ever seen it do that. My sister screamed, obviously. She was like freaking out. I was like, there's no way this happened. Like, my back was turned to it, so I barely got to see anything. And I don't know, but since then, like, just little weird things have happened like around there where you feel like somebody's in there. Sometimes I'm in there like 11 midnight, 2 a.m. sometimes.
Right.
And yeah, you feel like somebody's in there, and you can tell when it leaves. Like, it's just this odd sensation. I've always considered like, oh, this isn't real. But once that happens to you, like, you kind of feel it, and like it can be real. Like, I'll tell you,
that is pretty scary. So I would be freaked out.
Are you always traveling, or do you actually live in Ecuador? I had to ask because
no, my girlfriend's actually from Ecuador.
Oh,
and
that's
we've been
cool.
together for it's like 8 years already. So I've been going back and forth, LA, come back, LA, come back. I've been trying to take her like to Mexico or LA, more Mexico, but we're still like in the works. Like, we're still like filling out everything, seeing how we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the meantime, I keep coming back. So
that's cool. I mean,
yeah,
it's
I
also
live in
nice
LA.
too.
Yeah.
It's also nice too that because I mean, sure, your studio back in LA is pretty like set up and stuff, but like and now with everything, you're able to travel. I'm sure you're working on stuff there now, like grabbing stories and doing writing. I'm sure a lot, because I know that a lot of people don't think about this, but like the writing, it goes back to a lot, because we write a lot of the stuff that we do too, like as we build up for interviews, because we don't want to come in there and sound like these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about, man. We've had scenarios like that too. A couple, we've interviewed some fighters, and we didn't have a record down completely or something. I totally screwed something where I was like, oh man, I don't think I thought that I wrote that out, but I didn't. And then the guy was like, nah, dude, I'm actually, this is my record, and and I was like, oh, that was my bad. But I know that you probably go through encounters like that as well, where because you're constantly working on this content, and you're, in having all these stories. How do you keep it all in check, man? Like, I mean, is it a calendar? Is it a scheduling system? I mean, what kind of task system is going on? Because it's a lot. I mean, if you really do,
especially at the fact that you're running 6 different
like that's a lot.
YouTube,
we could barely run this one.
We're barely running this one. So, and in YouTube, you're doing video, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into putting all this together, just to be able to have the viewership and make sure that everything's correct. So I'm assuming, and also I wanted to ask, is there a time where it's just like, oh man, I don't have enough stories, or is there just a plethora of stories that are out there that you just continuously dig up?
Yeah. Man, well, first, I appreciate that, because for me, I swear, it always seems like a mess. Like, so I'm surprised you guys see it as like, oh, this, it just looks like, oh, you're managing it all properly, but really behind the scenes, it's a mess, man. It's like
well, that's comforting, because we feel like that about ourselves
we
too.
We feel like we're a mess sometimes.
But you got 6, we only have 1, so.
It's harder, like, because I definitely, I don't feel like I have it, all put together. But there's definitely, it helps out to have people that do certain things, that take over some tasks. Like, I know for me, there's things that I like to do within the podcast, and I don't like to do others. Like, for example, emailing, and because you guys know, like, I fall behind with emails. I'm just like, what? Because there's just too many.
That's why we usually figured that when we're like, oh, he's a busy dude, and that's cool. Like, we're like, this guy has got like 6 platforms, running 6 networks, a ton of shows. And yeah, I mean, we're just trying to get an interview, and and it's always nice when people hit us back, because we have a few lined up. We were trying to line one up with, in fact, Bigfoot and
even like going back to what you had said when you were first trying to get some scary stories and you weren't getting anything. It's kind of the similar situation that we're getting through right now, because again, we had a podcast. We didn't necessarily need interviews or anything like that. We had content. We had episodes that we ran. But now it's more of like, okay, well, we're trying to do interviews and people's journey and success and struggles in whatever it is that they're doing. And, we're running into our own little...
Yeah, and you make it seem effortless, by the way, because you're looking on scary.fm, and you head on over there and you'll see what we're talking about. Like, but it does look like, he's got everything together. Like, damn.
Yeah, no, not at all, man. But, like, for example, for Horror Story, there's now I have somebody who helps me with all the pre-production stuff, which is gathering all the research and the writing, and all I get is the final script, right? And I just get the script now. And once I get the script, I go in and I change it, and I add things, and I correct it. And it's a good thing, because Christina's awesome. She's the one that helps me with all this stuff. And
shout out, Christina.
Shout out. Thanks for all your work, and all the writers too, and people who help me edit and everything, like the research, because there's certain things that I know I add in, and she remembers. She's like, oh, he likes it like this way, like he likes the intro to be this long, or he likes something else. That you kind of get it. Sometimes I record myself reading it out loud and saying, okay, look, I removed this because it doesn't fit, or I cut this because it makes sense better at the end, something like that. And they learn, and people are like that. People, when you feel like you're part of a team or whatever, like that, like this episode came out and it's all of our efforts, they take pride in it. And I can give 90% of the credit to everyone else for me for just starting the show. Like, now it's more like they're the one that keep it going, and for me, I'm just like, I'm reading it and I'm making sure that everything's running. But that's for that show. And yeah, there are times, like, to answer your question, there are times when I feel like, oh, this is too much. This is like, every once in a while, sometimes after like a call, or like after I finish uploading, and I'm just like, I just kind of sit there and I'm just like staring at the wall, like, oh man, okay, here we go. Let's do the next
like
one.
Writer's blog.
Yeah, you kind of go back. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
So, being that you do have a team, and you have a team of writers, and you got Christina, should I assume correctly that your podcasts have been successful enough where you hire these people?
Oh yeah. Like, I think from the very first podcast too, like Scary Story podcast, that thing climbed within that first year. I think, actually no, it was a year of just kind of, I don't remember the exact dates, but like, I would say maybe like 9 months ish of just kind of struggling, but like it's gaining an audience, but not monetizing, up to like, from that first advertisers, I think it was not BetterHelp, HelloFresh. From that is it HelloFresh? I think it's HelloFresh. From that very first advertiser, from like when that hit 1 year later, I had already made $80,000 with that show. So that was just with that one. With a year, you know, that included monetization, like automatic ads. That included like when people, you know, the host read ads, whatever you can find, and like feed drops. I added everything I could.
Do you have a passion for, I mean, like broadcasting? I mean, you kind of have that. I mean, we're two guys. We were producers in radio for many years at iHeartRadio. So we produced a lot of shows there. But you have an appeal like that where, you know, a host, right? Like, I mean, even as we listen, because the dramatic pauses, the cuts, you know, the sound effects that come in. I mean, and we're audio nerds, so we listen to a lot of that stuff, and then we take that into consideration, which is why we're like, yeah, we gotta have him on, we gotta figure this out, you know. And I feel like you do have this maybe a live connection. Would you ever consider doing something like that in the future? I'm just curious because now that I keep listening to the way you've built up, like you talk about the monetizing, you talk about like the strategy and all that. That's everything that we talk about in those like producing meetings. When you're out there like preparing for a show, you know, is that something that's you maybe look for in the future?
I mean, definitely. There's. I mean, I got asked about too, like voice acting, and I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. But I say yes to everything and then figure it out. Yeah. But definitely never. I'm not crossing that out of the table too, like having
it's good money to be made there.
Live or something like that. Like
no doubt.
Like there's just a lot of things, you know. There's so many things. Like right now, I think it's just video, like on camera video. That's the next thing. And also with that, in order to market it, like there's some ideas about live streams, live events, because that helps. It's kind of like you're meeting up with the person who's doing the shows.
Totally.
That'd be cool. Community.
So before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, what struggles did you encounter while trying to create these platforms for yourself? And was there any support? Was there no support? And what would you say to others that are trying to basically do the same, whether it's scary podcasting or or content creation? What is it that you would advise them to do and take on, and you know, that sort of thing?
For me, the struggles were mainly in figuring things out, like not knowing what the heck to do. I didn't know what a producer was, what they did. Seriously, I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea like how a sequence worked of like, okay, somebody records, who send it to who does what do you call, for example, like when you have a story and like somebody calls in a story, then we run it through like we transcribe it. Once it's transcribed, like you remove the ums and the ahs, and some things make better sense in the front, or you move them around. Like, what do you call that? I had no idea. We call it like story editing now, but I don't even know if that's right. But yeah, sorting things out like that. You basically nailed it. Yeah, like it was just like trial and error, a lot of it, and it was through conferences, like podcasting conferences, that I really figured out. Like there was one stage with the guys from Astonishing Legends, Scott and Forrest. These guys, they have a team. Like this is when I saw a professional podcast team. Like they were at a table, they were at a bar, and I was like, I remember saying like, oh, these guys are the Astonishing Legend guys. And somebody heard that, and they're like, hey, come here. And then they just like put me awkwardly like in that table. But then they told me all the stuff that they do, and they had a presentation the next day. And that's when I saw the producer, the sequence of like the producer, the editors, the hosting, how did that work, the research team, and how in a line they were saying how it goes. And it was like, if you think about it, like for anyone else, it would have been the most boring lecture you could ever imagine. And I was just like, I wanted to record it. I didn't know what to do. I was just like, I was taking notes, like scribbles, trying to sort it all out. You know, funny story too, like now I work with that editor that was on stage. Like now she works with me on one of the shows. So it's like this loop, this big
full circle.
Awesome.
Yeah, super cool. But you know, if people want to get started with something like this, definitely, like it takes some, what do you call it? Like that stubbornness, like that, like
in other words, like don't stop, just keep going.
Yeah. Keep going with it, and also like don't do the same thing over and over if it's not working. Like if it's not working, make little adjustments to it, because it's sometimes, and I hear this on podcasting advice, like on Reddit and everywhere, that they say like, oh, just keep going, you're gonna get it. And I'm like, but if your method is wrong and you just keep repeating that, like you're just gonna keep getting the same result.
Yeah,
it's true. And
that's
kind of like what we ran into.
Yeah, we
with
ran into
our,
that
our
with our last show
podcast. That we had 5 years of doing it. And we were running into the same issues. Not everybody was on the same page, and nothing bad. It's just there was a lot of things going on in our lives, and it was 4 of us at one time. So it just took a lot from all of us, and each one of us had a lot going on. So but we ran it for 5 years, more than other podcasts could ever hold on to.
We always joke that we passed the podcast fad because it wasn't a fad for us. We've been doing it for such a long time,
and so now we're giving ourselves this opportunity, and thank you again for giving us this first. It's the first official, honestly, tapped in.
Because our last one we did it with the chef, our friend, he 3-time Blue Ribbon LA County Fair Ribbon Award winner for guacamole.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. So like he's really cool. He actually produces a big show out here too in LA for some talk shows. He's really cool. But he kind of gave us a lot of insight too about like, hey, you guys should do this. Like just tips, just like you were saying, just absorbing all that and taking it as it goes. And it is a lot of work. People don't realize how much it goes into. But I want you real quick, man, because we're going to wrap it up here. And I want to mention for the socials, all the stuff where people can reach out to you, because you have such a large network, and we do appreciate the tips, but I want to make sure that people go to scary.fm. And what else would you like to promote?
If people want to get in touch with me, just my username for Instagram, TikTok, everywhere is Edwin Cove. That's like EDWINCOV, like short for Covarrubias. Yeah. Because that'd be impossible to spell properly. Like you're gonna end up somewhere else.
Yeah, I can barely say it. He gives me a hard time.
Yeah.
So.
Covarrubias. Also, that's also my website, like my domain, edwincove.com or edwincovarrubias.com.
Great.
And there is it's linked to everything, and if it's not linked like right now, it's gonna be linked because we're working on the website by I think Monday. Yeah, so like in a couple days, all these sites are gonna be up. But yeah, like I talk anything podcasting with anybody. Like if anybody's willing to talk podcasting with me, we'll just sometimes with other podcasters, we're just like, hey, you want to talk podcasting? And it's just like we got on a call and we just talk strategy. What worked, what didn't work. Yeah, it's so anybody wants to talk about that can. Love also it. Anything scary, obviously. You can
of course.
That's right. Edwin, hey man, we really appreciate your time. Check out Edwin on scary.fm. Head on over there. Also give him a follow on his social at Edwin Cove, and that's on TikTok and Instagram. We had the chance of checking out his stuff. We have a lot of content up there. And if you're really into scary storytelling, this is the podcast to check out. Guaranteed. Production is well done. Edwin, you are a gracious host to come on and take your time out there live in Ecuador, and we really do appreciate it. And real quick,
you know what would be great if we can link up with you once you're back in LA.
Oh,
and actually have a good sit down,
cool. Like a sit down, conversation
like a revisit. At least have a better extended version of this interview.
Yeah, and then I can get all my stuff out of storage and crap like that, because all my equipment is literally everywhere right now, and it's a mess. Like I produce too on the side, like DJ work and music work, and
we'll go to you.
Yeah, we'll go to you, and I'm a mess right now, so I'm like, we're just trying to make it all happen. But we hadn't put a recording together, and we're super grateful.
Unless in the back of his head he's like, yeah, I don't want to do these.
He's I don't know about these guys anymore.
No, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'll let you guys know when I'm back, when I'm up. Yeah.
That's cool.
It is different. It is different to do something in person. It is definitely different. So,
so if you don't mind sticking around, once this is over, we'd like to, talk to you real quick about something.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Edwin. I will hit you back, brother. Thanks. Appreciate that.